Welcome back, Pirate Crew. It's your captain, Yeehaw Yadam, and for today's video, we're going to be looking back at a leader that I had already previously played. We're going to be looking at Queen, and now you may be asking, Yadam, you already did Queen. Why are we continuing to do Queen? Well, for those of you that don't know, there was a regionals that happened online this week, and there was actually a couple regionals, and this is one that won the OPTCG regional on Saturday, October 7th. So I'm really excited to go ahead and test it out, mostly because I feel like the more I played Queen, the better I got at the deck. And the video that I went ahead and put out may have not had that specific gameplay. There's also a lot of differences between Holden Miller's deck and my own, and I wanted to go ahead and share that. There's a couple things that I want to highlight before we get into the games, and let's start talking about exactly what those differences are. In every Queen deck, I expect to see a couple of these trigger blockers, right? You might see, maybe not a couple. You'll see a maximum of Hancock, Brule, Veggie. You'll probably see a little bit of Don Quixote do Flamingo and or Perona. Some people play like a very small count of Perona, mostly because you want to go ahead and combo those abilities with your very powerful leader effect. So far, pretty standard. The multiple Sanjis. We're playing Sasaki because why Sasaki more than anything? Because Sasaki, it lets you find answers if your hand is very, very bricked. We did get this new introduction of the Animal Kingdom Sasaki that lets you just play it from hand and recycle your hand and see if you can find it to your very powerful top end, because you do need it for this deck and or pieces of removal. Then Holden went ahead and played a couple of Soga King, which I can agree with. Soga King allows you to filter some hands that become a little bit too unplayable. You have a lot of uncounterable, too many of the removal and not enough creatures. Well, Soga King can allow you to do that while also gaining some tempo. Katakuri at 3 feels great in this deck, and 4 Mihawk, 4 Yamato is on the heavy side, but I respect it. The way to combat all of this heavy drops that he's playing is because he's also allowed, well, not allowed, but he's chosen to play Gum Gum Rain, which will go ahead and let him pitch some of these very high cost and uncounterable cards, and also get you to that 4 life threshold, or 4, balance, that 4 hand and life balance that Queen desperately needs. You also got a maximum amount of 3,000 worlds plus Gum Gum Red Rock. So you got a lot of stuff going on in this deck. What I do like that he was doing is he's playing not only the Red Rocks, which is I think that's all I decided to do in my deck. He's also incorporating 3,000 worlds at a maximum capacity, which I'm not entirely sure about, but I do like the inclusion of Gum Gum Rain more than anything. And I did play test after my video with a little bit of Pound, and I did end up really enjoying this card in very specific matchups. Let's get right into a couple games and let's exactly see how this deck functions in the meta. Alright guys, so for our first game, we're going to be playing versus Don Quixote do Flamingo, and I wanted to showcase this game because I think this is a matchup that isn't particularly good for Queen, right? Because they get to summon these big bodies that are really hard to counter out of, as well as they have a ton of blockers, defense, and the 10-drop Flamingo in particular, when they, it's going to freeze your Queen, and should freeze your Queen every time. If they go Flamingo, freeze your Queen, Flamingo, freeze your Queen, Flamingo, freeze your Queen, it's going to be really tough to come back from that situation. So I do end up winning the die roll and being able to choose if I go first or second. And I do opt to go second here because I need to get, my opponent off the 10-drop as much as I can. I pass it back because, Queen doesn't really have any turn 2 plays to see my opponent, what he does. And then based upon what they do, I'm going to go ahead and play accordingly. So my opponent attacks me for 5. I do give him a 2K, which may or may not seem a little troll. But I want to keep the Flamingo blocker as well as the Usopp because I'm not necessarily sure if I'm going to need them at this point in time. Knowing that my opponent attacks me for 5 means that they're going to go ahead and summon a Nami, which makes it really easy. This 3,000 world is going to go ahead and remove that. Right? I'm not going to let him get value off that Nami if I can, right? Because that's exactly how I lose this game. A Grand Tesoro that gets a Spiral or a Nami that gets a Spiral breathes bad news for our deck. Now, my opponent attacks me for 6, which would have been great to have my 2K here. But I do get lucky and rewarded and whatever you want to call it. And I get a Boa Hancock trigger, which is really, really nice for me. Now I'm at 6 Dawn, which is nothing in my hand is playable except the Red Rock and or the Flamingo blocker. And I'm going to opt to Red Rock here just because this Uda is going to be able to counteract my Boa Hancock. And honestly, I want to be as Dawn efficient as possible. Now you can say this is a very impatient play, which I will agree with you saying that because that Red Rock is going to come in handy later into the game. But I just want to be as Dawn efficient as humanly possible. And I'm going to continue the no attacking approach because I don't want to give him more cards in hand to defend his creatures. I'm going to make him have it, right? Very similar to the Law. If Law doesn't see like a Bonnie, the Law is going to run out of resources. If the Law doesn't see the specific searchers, they're going to run out of resources. And that's what I'm trying to do. Get to that late game setup where I have multiple blockers and I can heal and I can just push through it and have my opponent low on hand size. Now my opponent attacks me for 5. I'm going to combo this Usopp because most certainly Luffy's going to come down here, which there it goes. Luffy's going to probably summon, and that's the worst case scenario. And then it got a little bit better, the Shiki at the end. If that was a Nami, we were in for a tough time. My opponent passes it back to me. I'm at 8 Dawn. Well, Katakuri is just going to light this Luffy. I'm going to pass it to my opponent. Now, this turn, I am going to take a little bit of pain because, honestly, it's not much I can do with the Flamingo as well as the Brook that are going to attack me, right? I do have a blocker on board, which makes it so that... And I had a blocker on board. So Sugar's going to come down. And in particular, Sugar right here, in this moment, is really bad for me, right? Because Sugar's going to be able to counteract my next play, right? It's going to allow him to remove my Boa Hancock. There's just nothing I can do about this. And then whatever big boy I summon right here is just going to get, it's going to stop my Katakuri from attacking. It's just going to be a terrible situation for me in general. My opponent attacks me for 5, and I'm kind of almost forced to take it. And unfortunately, I do get a Sanji trigger here. Now Sanji's going to come down. And I'm deciding what to take down. It seems like I'm going to get really low on life, so it's going to be Yamato into Yamato situation. My opponent goes ahead and puts 2 on his leader. He's going to attack me for 7, and then now I'm going to accept whatever number this is. I'm just going to go ahead and accept. Lucky again, I did have 3 triggers in life, so stacking. And it goes back to my turn. Now, I do get the opportunity to go ahead and play a Yamato here. Yamato's going to come down and remove the Uda. This will allow my opponent to go ahead and shift something into the defensive position. The Katakuri is a good choice, which makes it so that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play. It doesn't matter where this Dawn really goes at the end of the day. I mean, it really could have gone on Boa for all I care, right? Boa swing at Sugar for 2, but I'm afraid of him since he has 2 up that he can go ahead and Punk Gibson me. So I have to respect Punk Gibson. I have to respect those 2 event cost counters and just go at a really decent total. At 6, this Sugar cannot live. I'm going to go 5 at the Shiki because honestly, if he Punk Gibson's the Boa, he only has 2 attackers, which I don't really care about if he goes ahead and removes the rest of my life because I have a Yamato in my hand. Goes back to my opponent, and I do now have him on 3 cards. I have 3 cards, but I have the board, which is exactly the scenario that I want to be in. He has 2 attacks that comes down this turn. He goes Nami. I'm going to have to remove this Nami no matter what because that's one of the cards that I lose to. He has been a Fiesta. Want a Fiesta and go ahead and let him just dig a little bit deeper. I guess he's looking for a Luffy or a Grand Tesoro. He sees an Uda, which is nothing too bad for me. I don't feel too badly about getting hit with an Uda. He goes 5 at my face, and I'm just going to defend it. I don't really think I need to go ahead and keep this Flamingo blocker. I believe I choose not to defend it, but I'm so good at this game. It's crazy. Get another blocker trigger. And then whatever my opponent does on his leader, I'm just going to block. Now, you can go ahead and play Uda. Yeah, he goes 5. I'm just going to block it with Boa Hancock because I'm just going to play my leader. Not my leader, my Yamato. Basically my leader at this point on my following turn. He's going to probably go ahead and summon Uda. And yeah, keep up 3 Dawn. It didn't matter whatever he hit me with. I was just going to block. So I'm going to go ahead and play Yamato. Unfortunately, I don't get to like double heal off of this Yamato because I have too many cards in hand. Maybe I should have just comboed that Flamingo and then let the other one trigger. It is what it is. So then I'm thinking of exactly what to do here, and no matter what, I have to get rid of this Nami, and the easiest way to do that is just by summoning the Yamato. I'm also considering possibly red rocking the Nami and then playing the Flamingo blocker and then healing with my leader and then doing that. But then that locks my leader, which is not necessarily great for me either. But then I do a terrible play here, and that's give him the situation to lock my leader, right? And maybe I'm trying to tell him, yeah, do it. He has 2 cards in hand, so I'm going to attack this Brook as much as I can. Just remove as much pressure as I possibly can off the board. Hitting for 6, I don't get to heal and or draw because I'm at 5 cards total between my life and my hand. So I don't get the bonus effect. And tapping my queen here was really, really bad. In my opinion, I should have probably gone 9 with the Katakuri at the Brook. That probably would have been a much better play. He goes ahead and opts to block with the Uda. Uda is going to Dawn -1. It's going to go ahead and tap my Boa Hancock. Or my Sanji. Tap my Sanji. That's fine. I'll go 8 at the Brook. And then I'll go 9 at my opponent. Now, this is going to give him a little bit of... The reason I swung the 9 here is because I want to give him a choice of putting 3 freezes, and I don't want him to choose my leader, right? He can opt to choose... if I left the Yamato unrested, then he can freeze the Sanji, the Katakuri, and my leader, which are all terrible picks. If he is now under the situation where he has to freeze Yamato, Katakuri, and my leader, well, at least I get to keep the Sanji. So, fortunately, he didn't have the 10 drop here, so he goes ahead and rests my Boa Hancock. And honestly, I should give him the pound. I should just pitch pound here to allow myself to start getting into that threshold where I can start healing with my leader, but I opt not to. It's bad because if he hits me with 7 here, I'm not going to be able to counter out of it, and it's just going to be terrible. But I don't think he's going to do that. The more Dawn he attaches to probably kill my big boys, the better it's going to be for me. He goes and places 3 under his leader. He's going to remove my Sanjin. This is the situation I was talking about where it gets pretty bad for me. But in removing two blockers from my board, I can go ahead and replay 2 blockers. I give him a card here. For what reason? Who knows? And then this is honestly me after playing a ton of Queen, and I'm still playing the deck pretty poorly. I'm going to go, and he's going to go ahead and summon another Sugar now. Sure. Now I can go ahead, and I'm trying to see exactly where this turn goes. I want to go ahead and stack my life, but I probably should have played the Brûlée first, as this is going to allow him to tap the blocker, but it's probably going to tap both Yamatos here. Going to go ahead and stack my life in a way that's going to make my opponent really hate this game. But I do get to make sure that I draw Red Rock. I mean, I have a Red Rock in hand. I'm going to make sure I draw the 3,000 Worlds. Going to life a 3,000 Worlds. Going to go ahead and add Rain. Going to life a Veggie. And then from there, really, it's just impossible for my opponent to win this game. So my opponent's going to go ahead and tap my Yamato and tap my Yamato. I'm going to go ahead and place a Dawn under my leader. 2 Dawn under my leader for fun. I'm going to go ahead and heal this Gum Gum Red Rock. He's going to have to let this Sugar go. Then I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, get him, Katakuri. Show this Sugar who's boss. And then I'm going to go ahead and play a Brûlée and then pass it to my opponent. So with 2 blockers, and this is a situation I wanted to be in, right? Heal a card, blocker, heal a card, blocker, remove a card, heal a card, blocker. And that's the situation that Queen really, really wants to be in. So my opponent now is, poised for decisions. He's going to go and have to decide what he wants to do. Here goes Grand Tesoro. Sick, bro. I don't get Flamingoed. It's fantastic. So he goes Grand Tesoro. Attack me for whatever, maybe. If he attacks my characters, I just defend with Brûlée. If I just don't know what he does from here. He goes and attaches 5 to his leader. And that's what ends up happening usually for Flamingo. I'm just going to go ahead and block with Brûlée. Go and draw for a turn. I'm going to go ahead and 3,000 Worlds this bad boy out of here. I'm going to go ahead and see what happens for the rest of this turn. I'm going to go ahead and my opponent for 9, heal my way back up to 4, and now I'm healing another 3,000 Worlds. So my triggers are now 3,000 Worlds, Gum Gum Red Rock, a blocker, and then Mystery Card, which is like, God bless. Hit my opponent for 9, he takes. It seems like they got a trigger here. Hit my opponent for 9. And then hit my opponent for 9 once again. That's fine. Goes down to 2 cards. And then I'm going to opt to hit my opponent for 5 as well with my Don Quixote. If he opts to go 10 drop, I'm almost welcoming at this point. He's going to have to 10 drop, hit my blocker. And then that's perfectly fine. It still leaves me with like Red Rock, heal a card, and push, right? So it goes back to my opponent's turn. He's down to 1 life. He pitches the Diamante. He has 3 cards in hand. To my full board, full life. He goes 5 at the Flamingo. It goes. He gets to play Don Quixote probably here, which he does. He goes and freezes all my characters, but I was prepared for this. And that's going to be the rest. That's going to be the end of his turn. I'm back to 4 life. I'm trying to find a way to get to 5 life, right? And unfortunately, I drew the Rain here. So I don't get to 5 life in Queen, but I do get to go ahead and remove that and then just 9. And 9 is going to be good enough because it's going to have to remove the 2 cards out of his hand, or he's going to have to take the life, and that's going to force him now to have another Flamingo. And if he does Flamingo, I just 15 him, and that's game. So as you can see, pretty commanding win from Queen there. So let's move on to the next game. For our second game, we're going to be playing versus Katakuri, which is not a great matchup. If you saw my How to Play Queen video previously, you saw that one of my only L's was to Katakuri. It's a matchup that's a little bit difficult to navigate and honestly just requires a little bit of luck and a lot of practice on the Queen side. So my opponent, again, I lose the die roll. My opponent opts to go second, and I know exactly where this is going. So it's going to go back to me, and I'm going to go ahead and play my Flamingo. I probably should have attacked my opponent before doing this, and then I have to do quite some thinking here, right? Do I want to keep this? Do I want to bottom this? Exactly what am I trying to do here? And honestly, I don't have a Red Rock, which is a humongous problem at this point in time, because Red Rock is a card that is very necessary in this matchup, because once they start dropping mobs, I have to immediately answer them. But I do opt to go and keep this in life, and I'm deciding, well, my next turn, I see myself doing this, and then him doing this. So I don't want a 3,000 Worlds next turn, so I'll draw 2k. Then on the following turn, I do want to draw the 3,000 Worlds because they'll probably play like a Randolph or something that I can go ahead and bottom deck with the 3,000 World. And then after which, I can go ahead and get a blocker, and then I can go ahead and play Mihawk and go from there, right? And then I can probably, if he's going really aggressive, play the Yamato. But it's that I decide to cope and say this is fine, and I pass it to my opponent. I opt not to attack here because this is going to be a stall fest. If I attack here and I hit into a trigger, I probably just immediately lose the game on the spot, and I can't afford to do that. My hand isn't good enough to deal with this at this point in time. My opponent hits me for 7, and I could combo out of this, but it's really not worth it. So I do get a little bit fortunate. I get the Brûlée here. It goes back to me, and then I wasn't expecting to see the Parasparrow just yet. So on my turn, ooh, it's gonna get tough. This is gonna be a long one, so strap in. Now there's a couple things you can do. You can opt to go ahead and be the aggressor in this matchup, or be a little bit more defensive. I opt to be a little bit more defensive because I just didn't want to get thunderbolted. And speaking of, see if I would have attacked last turn, I would have just gotten clapped by that thunderbolt. It goes back to my turn. I play the Sanji, and then I pass it off to my opponent. So this is a card that, again, I don't enjoy summoning the Sanji for 4 Dawn because I don't think it's necessarily that Dawn efficient, but it's just good enough. He's going to attack me for 5. I'm able to defend out of this. I will. I'm going to pitch the Brûlée, or one of these. It doesn't really necessarily matter. Pound might become a little bit more useful because I could life the Parasparrow and put it towards the bottom of the life, and that's a way to deal with it, which isn't terrible. My opponent's going to attack me for 7. I can't really defend out of it. I'm going to go ahead and get another trigger, which is going to be really good for me. It's going to be 3,000 Worlds, and I know the next card I'm drawing is 3,000 Worlds, so hopefully he drops a Randolph right here. Got him. So he goes ahead and drops the Randolph. I do draw for turn. I do get to be able to just remove the Randolph on sight. I'm going to attack my opponent for 5 because my turn is going to be really, really simple. I just go ahead and 3,000 Worlds. I attack for 5 because he could get some sort of Parasparrow trigger or anything like that, and then I'm going to play the Pound into it. If not, I'll probably keep the Pound. I go 5 at my opponent with the Sanji because I've decided now I have to, we're in a race scenario. I'm low on life. He's not going to have a board right here, so it's going to probably be a little bit good for me. I know next turn I'm going to go to 9 Dawn, which is really, really solid, because then I can go ahead and Mihawk whatever he summons here, and that's not a Katakuri. Hopefully he doesn't play Katakuri. And the reason I didn't play Pound and I opted to play Boa Hancock is because if he wants to play Katakuri and you want to life any of my characters, sure, brother, they're all triggers. So I think that's really, really solid for me. My opponent goes ahead and attaches a Dawn under his leader, looks at my life, and they opt to put it to the bottom, meaning they want to burn that card. So this card is an unknown, and I mean, I'm deciding whether I want to... I'm trying to see how these next couple of turns are going to play out. Well, my next turn, I'm going to go ahead and Mihawk, and he's probably going to summon a 7-drop here. I see Mom in my future. I'm going to gain him the life. I'm going to Mihawk the Mom, and then I'm going to force him to have the 10-drop. I still don't know that he has the 10-drop yet, so I'm going to be making sure to make those decisions. So if I do think that that's the next couple of turns and the way it's going to come out, I'm going to go ahead and do it in this manner. He's going to take this life, which is a Yamato, which is really, really good. But I had a Yamato coming up anyway, so it's not like I truly need this card. He plays the Mom as I expected, and I'm going to go grant him this life because I don't want to trash this, because then next turn I'm going to be forced to use my blockers when I don't really want to. So I'm going to grant him 1 life, and like I said, this is going to go into the long run. My opponents have 5 life to my 1, and then I'm just going to 5 his leader, 5 his leader. See how if he wants to defend this or not. He probably opts to take this because he just wants more cards in hand. Going to 5/5 and then Mihawk, right? And you don't want to get overly greedy with the attacks, because that's really where this matchup gets a little bit swingy, and this can happen as well for Rebecca if you're playing into yellow. If you over attack 1 turn and they hit the right trigger, you might just immediately lose the game. So you got to be a little bit more careful. He does get a Shirahoshi trigger as well, so now he's had Thunderbolt and Shirahoshi this game, so you can't really complain that I haven't been triggered. If I do inevitably win, and I get to Mihawk the Mom away, and I get to pass it back to my opponent. Unfortunately, I don't get to heal this turn, but I do expect this next turn to be very cut and dry. He's going to 5 my face or my Sanji. Who cares? I'm going to defend it with the Pound. Pound's not really going to do much in this matchup. I could also opt to theoretically give him the Sasaki, because I could leave up more blockers. So I opt to go for the Sasaki because I want more blockers, I guess, which is actually pretty fine, especially if I'm getting Mommed. My opponent does bomb me. It goes back to my turn. He's at 4 life, and I get to go Yamato, Pop Pudding, place a Dawn under my Queen. Unfortunately, I do have to attack the leader. He probably takes this, and I didn't want to attack him. He gives me a 2K, which is hell yeah. Attack him for 5. And the reason I'm attacking for 5 here is because, again, I have to put him on some sort of clock to be able to win the game. He gives me another 2K. I go attack him for 9. He's going to opt to have to take this. And the reason I'm attacking for 9, there is an argument to not attack for 9, because if I swing with the Mihawk, it allows the Mom a target to swing that's really, really good. But if he's attacking my Mihawk and I do get to block my Boa Hancock, that's also pretty good. He goes ahead and plays the pudding, so it's not back-to-back moms, which was what I was kind of worried about, but this is a situation that I can possibly get out of. He does get a Katakuri, which is pretty good because he's probably going to opt to go 7, Katakuri, place the Shirahoshi back, and then mom my Mihawk, right? So everything is telegraphed, right? And that's what's, after playing versus Katakuri and or Edward Newgate, you kind of see like exactly how their Dawn allocation works, and you just kind of try to play accordingly. So he goes 7 at potentially my Sanji. If he goes life, that's like freaking awesome. He goes at the Sanji, so he removes a... I can go ahead and Gum Gum Rain here to defend it, which I think I opt to do. It's not necessarily the worst thing on the planet, because I do get to keep a blocker for later. I'm trying to opt exactly how I see this going from here on out. Now, let's see if I do opt to do it. I can Rain, pitch the Pound, and then see how my next turn goes. I don't think I get to attack the Linlin on my following turn, but there is a universe where I just like 19 the Linlin. It's also a play that can happen. And I get to keep up the Sanji, but I probably just end up playing Yamato next turn. So I'm going to go ahead and pitch the Gum Gum Rain to keep the Sanji because I just want the blocker. He's probably going to go Mom at my Mihawk, and I'm just going to block it with Brule, keep Boa because Boa's hotter. And then he plays the Katakuri. He's not going to life any of my cards, going to life the Shirahoshi. So yeah, goes back to my turn, and we're not in a great spot. There is a couple of things that we can do. Thing that we can do, number 1, is go 17 at Mom. Or we can go 6 at Mom with our Queen to heal a card, and then 17. That's a thing. He does have a lot of cards in hand, and I think we just have to like force it, right? So I'm trying to calculate exactly how much Dawn I want to go ahead and put into my Yamato to go into this Mom, and it's a questionable amount. I go 5 Dawn at it, but I probably should have gone 6, and I probably should have hit him with Queen first if I was planning on doing this play, just by the way. My opponent, all they need to do is give me a 2k and a 1k, and they have given me a ton of 2ks at this point in time, so I do have that going for me, which is really, really good, but they do have the 2k, 1k, right? So it goes down to 3 cards in hand, and then I have 5 Dawn to work with. I can put 5 Dawn on the Mihawk and attack it, but if I'm not really healing myself this turn, then I'm not in a really good spot. So I'm trying to figure out exactly how to finish navigating this turn. I didn't end up playing Yamato, which isn't great for me, but I can play this Don Quixote Flamingo blocker, and I'm trying to think, should I go Mihawk at it and put him down to 1 card? But Yellow does have a lot of counter power, and they also have a lot of uncounterable. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen, especially with Shirahoshi in life. I don't want to hit the Shirahoshi before I attack this Mom, because I think I really need to just get the amount of value necessary. So I don't want to attack with the Mihawk. I want to keep it on the backdrop for the following turn. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get it off of this. Just tell him to give me another 2k. And I just don't really like how this turn ended up playing out. Probably the best way to navigate this turn would have been to 6 attack the Mom, heal a card, or I could have played the Flamingo, healed the card that I saw off the Flamingo, and then just gone everything else on Yamato. Or Mihawk, it doesn't really matter. 9k of your choice, and then just gone BAM! Which would have forced an equal amount of cards, but at least I would have another blocker on board, and I would have a 9k that is unsuspended, which is important in this matchup, right? And a 9k that's just not rested. So it goes back to my opponent. My opponent has quite a couple decisions to make on this turn as well. I do have 2 blockers, and I'm going to defend these big bodies as much as I possibly can, because those are going to be my win condition. Now, because I am at 3 life now, I don't really want to Yamato it up, and maybe that was one of the reasons I didn't play Yamato, but it's going to, again, we're just going to keep grinding and see what my opponent ends up doing here. He has a lot of options, but if he attacks like at base values, like for example this 9k attack, it's just too simple for me to pitch this 1k, because now I know for sure I can keep up multiple of these big boys. I'm going to go ahead and block with the Boa, and then if he goes ahead and puts enough Dawn to attack me with Katakuri, I can just block with the Sanji. But if he opts to go just 7, so I know that Katakuri is coming now, go 7 at my leader, and I'm going to take this hit gladly with bells on my feet. I don't know where that phrase is from. I heard it probably like in a TV show as a kid. I'm going to go ahead and look at my top life. They're going to opt to keep it there or move it to the bottom. What are we going to do? Gonna leave it at the top. I'm going to take it anyways. It is Usopp. Yeah, Usopp. It's fine to leave it there. It's not really going to do much. And they're probably going to Katakuri the pudding. This is the 3rd Katakuri? 2nd Katakuri, and 1 Big Mom and 1 Structure Deck Big Mom. So we played 4 big bodies at this point in time. And we've played 2. So we're behind on that end. But we don't have the Flamingo blocker here, so it does seem like we're going to have to play a couple of these cards out. I'm trying to figure out exactly how we navigate this turn. With 2 cards in my opponent's hand, I could go ahead and place a couple Dawn under my Queen, play the Sanji, and then that just seemed pretty inefficient. So I want to make it so that my turn is as efficient as humanly possible. And in order to do that, I want to clear as many cards as I possibly can. Now, a great card that I just never had in this matchup was Red Rock. 1 Red Rock, and this was just wraps, right? I just removed this mom, and then he didn't have any other moms, and it was just easy from there. I go 10 at it, and then now I'm like, well, how greedy can I possibly be? Now I can play Sanji, attack with my Queen, heal a card, and then the rest on the Yamato. Yeah, I probably doesn't get me in the situation that I truly want to be in. So I'm going to opt to just hit this for as much as possible. This is guaranteed KO on the mom. But what are we doing with the rest of our Dawn? Not much. So I'm just going to slam this thing. I'm just going to probably either 7 it or 9 it. Who cares? I'm just going to make sure that this mom is gone. And all they have is now their leader and their character Katakuri, which now allows me to be in a better board state. I have 2 big bodies and a blocker. Now if he swings with the Katakuri, I block, I defend 1, and I still have 2 big bodies. I can play Yamato on the following to pop certain cards, and then we're really in a good spot. Now, I'm really, the greed in me is insane. But, you know, because I could make sure he, you know, to put him on, like, if you have a 2K, if you don't have a 2K, I get to KO the mom. But why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just guarantee it? So I opt, fine. Let's get this big idiot off the board, and we're just going to 18 it, which is overkill, but just get it off the board while we still can. And then pass it back to my opponent. So we put him into that game state that we really want to be in. Blocker, big bodies, and we have low hand size. My opponent has low hand size. Who cares about their life? We'll clear that very soon. And then it goes back to my opponent's turn now. Really depends what they could possibly have here. If this game really continues to go in my favor or not. So let's see. If they have a 10 drop, would that be the worst thing to happen on the planet? Probably not, honestly, because the 10 drop would mean that both of my 9k bodies get to live, and then they just go like hold the Katakuri back, attack with leader probably for 5. I pitch the Usopp, and then I just on my turn go Sanji, swing. It doesn't necessarily bode well for us either if they have another 10 drop, right? Unless we top deck a Red Rock. If they top deck Red Rock, we're just really goated, huh? So let's see exactly what happens. I think my opponent's taking some time here because he probably has the 10 drop, but do they opt to play it this turn? Do they try to clear my cards? And the moment I see 1 Dawn allocated in that direction, I feel really good. Now, the fact that he hit me is okay. Yeah, oh, a blocker trigger, baby. Let's get it. So getting a little bit lucky there. That blocker trigger gives us a lot more wiggle room than we previously didn't have. And that's kind of the fear of my opponent doing stuff like this, right? So he goes and attaches a bit more. Dawn, he's attacking for 9. He goes 9 at my leader. Yeah, sure, I'll block with this. Now I have the Yamato. He can go ahead and play a 6 drop and guess exactly how much life is between myself and my opponent. Because I can tell you, the answer is 6. So I'm going to go ahead and attack 9 here. I'm going to go ahead and attack 9 here again. And I'm just going to go ahead and Yamato, heal, pop, Sparrow, gaming. Now we're in a great spot, right? Usually yellow doesn't have rushers, so nothing really to fear here. I go 6 at my opponent's leader, and he gets the Shirahoshi trigger. Sure, now you can have the Shirahoshi trigger, because now I'm going to beat you within 3 turns. My opponent, pass it back to my opponent, and they're probably like just forced to big mom me here, which is fine. I understand. He's gonna attack me for 5. I'm gonna pitch Usopp. They go big mom. I go blocker, slam into them. So the moment my opponent attaches 4, we're feeling real good. We're feeling real clean. We're feeling really happy because we're not getting mommed. We don't have a 2K to immediately punish it, so we'll just block with this Sanji, because next turn we're just going to be summoning them anyways. My opponent gets another Sparrow, and that's pretty good. Gonna go ahead and end up doing this either way, though, because I just think this is just a little bit better. I get to heal a card here. I get to develop 2 blockers, because I don't really need to remove this Sparrow. I just get to heal a card here. That's probably enough to fog the Sparrow attack anyway, so it's not like I really care. Get to attack my opponent for 8. He takes the 8, and I'm just going to pass my turn here. Unless they get a trigger here, which would be terrible, right? I should have probably attacked 8 before that, because if I get Thunderbolted on one of these blockers, that feels a little bit worse. but honestly, wouldn't be the end of the game. Unfortunately, I have to do it in this particular order in order to heal a card, so it is what it is. My opponent attacks me for 5. I go ahead and give him the Usopp. No need. I'm going to get mommed this turn, huh? So I'm going to lose 2 life immediately. I'm going to block here because I know that on my next turn I'm going to be summoning the Mihawk. He goes and plays the Mom. And yeah, we're still out here grinding, man. I'm going to go ahead and bottom deck this, and I'm just going to heal a card. Back to 3. Nice, Mom. Going to give me a 2K. Going to hit with a Mihawk, and I'm just going to apply gentle pressure. Gentle pressure. Gentle pressure. And then pass it right back to my opponent. So they could combo out of this 9K. It's not not the worst thing on the planet. Again, if I lose this Sanji, I also still don't lose the game, because unless my opponent has another crazy big drop, it's not going to be the worst. They do get to clear probably one of these 9 drops if this is a Thunderbolt, but it is what it is. I don't really need them all to win. He gets the Sanji trigger, pitch a Sparrow. That's perfectly fine. He can get the blocker. That's going to give him some more longevity. Try to count here exactly how many 2Ks I've seen, and I just say, who cares? He has very low hand size, and I've seen a lot of them anyways. So we're just going to move on. My opponent, again, dwindling on resources, and it's going to start getting a little bit harder for them to finish this game. I'm at 3 life. They're down to 1, and my whole board is 9K. Looking good. Trying to figure out exactly where we move from here. So no matter what, I'm probably going to end up taking a block this turn on whatever the Mom swings at. If he wants to go ahead and attach any amount of Dawn to contest any of my cards, he has to immediately, for the minimum he has to apply is 3 Dawn, which is 30% of his turn, 33-ish, a little bit less than that. So that's pretty good. So the Mom attacks, sure, Sanji goes away. That's not a problem. That attack was getting fogged by the blocker no matter what. Now, what my opponent does with the rest of his turn is completely up to them. If they want to go ahead and clear one of these big bodies, they're going to have to attach some amount of Dawn. If they tap the Sanji, they immediately lose the game, so they can't tap the Sanji. So I'll only lose 1 9K, and I think 3 9Ks is more than enough to push through 1 life. So let's see exactly how my opponent finishes off this turn here. And I mean, this is a crunch turn. This is one of the turns that's going to take the longest in the gameplay, right? Because they have to go ahead and make sure that what they're doing is correct. They're going to go ahead and attach 2, and that's going to be, I believe, 8K. And 8K is just not good enough. I'm going to take this 8K, and if I get a trigger here, it's going to be really bad for them. I get another blocker, which is going to be really good for me in the long run. They get to go ahead and life a card, probably the Shirahoshi once again. Not a problem. And it goes back to me. And now my turn is a little bit more complex, right? They do get another card healed that way, which is annoying. But the best way to go ahead and move through it is just apply gentle pressure. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can even fathom lethally this turn. And we probably can't. But there are ways that we can go ahead and just be annoying. We're going to 9K, see how he responds to it. He lets it go through. He draws through the Shirahoshi. Going to discard 2. That's a +1, baby. And Katakuring a Shirahoshi is still a very, very strong play. So he goes ahead and pitches another Mom. So I don't think another Mom's coming in my future. I'm going to attack my opponent for 9 here. And then this is where it gets a little bit tricky. This 9, he opts to concede. Because no matter what happens on this 9K attack, I believe the game is just over, right? And let me explain why. So he combos out of this 9. Then if he combos out of this 9, he goes down to 1 card in hand, makes it so that this Mom is really easy to remove, no matter how I really, choose about doing it. If it goes to 1 card in hand, well, fine, I go 9 again. He blocked with Sanji, everything on, I put a blocker down, everything on Queen. I remove his Mom, and I have a blocker. He loses his blocker. He's down to 0 cards in hand, and I get to go back to 3 life. If he opts to take this hit, well, then he's even in worse territory, because then I just apply my Dawn aggressively, and they're just in a bad spot. They're going to be forced to, defend another, what is it? I would split my Dawn 5-5, so he's going to go 14-14, or it'd be 13-13-7, which is a really bad number when he has 5 cards in his hand, and it's just going to end up becoming wraps no matter what. So he either loses the board, loses the life, loses his hand. He's going to lose something, but most importantly, my opponent's going to lose the game. So that's I don't think I misplayed this one too much, but there obviously is still things that I could have done better in this matchup to make it so that it was even more favorable on my side, and just shows exactly that Queen can match up with Katakuri. sometimes. All right, and for our last video, the final deck in the gauntlet of horrible matchups for Queen, Nami, right? So I really had to dig for this matchup because I don't see a lot of people playing Nami on the sim, and respect, thank God. My opponent ends up winning the... no, I win the dire. I opt to go first because I know that I need to go 9-drop on curve. No matter what happens, a 9-drop has to come down. I have only Yamato at this time, but the first hand that I mulliganed had 3 Mihawks. And let's talk about why that hand might have been super turbo goated. Mihawk bottom decks and 3000 World bottom decks and Red Rock bottom decks, and every time I play one of those cards I gain more time, and time is precious in this matchup. So I'm gonna go ahead and play a Pound because that is, out of the only cards I have in my hand, the one that can become an attacking slot, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, placing 2 Dawn to hit for 5 isn't great, but I'm gonna need him maybe. My opponent does start with Kaya pitching a Zeph as well as a Desert Spada and then taking a 5. Weird. Really weird start by my opponent. It looks like my opponent, once they summon Nojiko, we know that the list is a little bit different. It's not an event heavy list, it's now a character heavy list. My opponent attacks me for 6 and every single card counts, so I'm not letting this 6 connect, right? Because even if they only get to mill 1 and I get to heal 1, I don't even give a crap about, none of that matters. All that matters in this matchup is that my opponent takes damage, I get to summon a Mihawk and then push for game, right? That's all that matters in this matchup. So if my opponent pushes a Zeph down, which is smart that he's pitching Zeph, because if you're playing into a blue matchup, you know that Zeph is just never sticking on the board. But Zeph is a mill 3, so it is mill 3, add Kaya back to your hand. So consider that, Nami player, next time. They end up playing Bellamir. Bellamir is really important because it's like a pseudo Zeph. It also has an on KO, but if you're just, I don't know, I'm not convinced. My opponent does, I do have to allow this one to get in. I do get to trigger this, but I'm not going to bounce any of these cards. I'm going to just opt to keep it in my hand and pass my turn. Goes back. I have 2 Mihawks now. This is getting really good for me because the Mihawks are going to go ahead and just give me a little bit more time. I'm going to get to 3000 World, the Bellamir. Now, Bellamir, I believe, is not a blocker, so we can just freely go ahead and attack my opponent. 5/5. I'm going to go ahead and 3000 World, play Pound. They do get a trigger here, which is important, right? They get to bounce back an attacking number, which is unfortunate for us, but such is life. Get to play the Pound. Again, same reason I'm picking Pound over Boa is because they're just going to be able to do that sort of stuff. So it goes back to my opponent's turn here. They go Nojiko, bounce my Pound. It's Pilaf. Boy, oh boy, we're just getting Pilafed back to back. They go Kaya. Now, while we were in a good spot, we're immediately now in a not so great spot. My opponent has 2 Dawn to work with here. Probably just going to pass. They pitch a Deathwing, which is good for us, actually. We don't really want to have him pick up too many Deathwings. At the end, they go Das Bones. Das Bones is going to go ahead and pick back up what I'm assuming is the Giant Gavel. And then what does my opponent do? He attacks me for 5. Now, that's a terrible play. I also shouldn't have blocked this. That play in general is just bad. Nami does not want to give me more cards in my hand, but it's irrelevant. If I do or don't take it, who cares? I'm gonna, since it's a more character heavy version, I'm afraid of like possible ridiculous stuff. And he gets another peel-off trigger in life. Not looking good for the homeboys, but this Mihawk does feel good because it adds, he went from, you know, the possible 25 to 26. So I've already bought him deck 2 cards because at 3000 World, and that's kind of nice that blue gets that. I guess a little bit of relief in that sense. Which is really, really solid. So I'm going to go ahead and Mihawk the Kaya. Obviously, it's the best target in my opponent's board because all they want to do is really Kaya. My opponent goes Rubber Band of Doom off of the Mr. Huang. They're Das Bones. And then he still has 26 cards to work with here. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling clean. No, and he plays another peel-off. Okay, that's a lot of peel-off, man. There's only so much peel-off that one man can eat, right? My opponent goes ahead and attaches a Dawn under Nami, and again, every card counts, so I'm going to opt to possibly defend this, and I will. Yeah, I'm just going to pitch this Red Rock. I don't need it. I have Mihawk. Mihawk is probably just good enough. This Usopp isn't really going to do much, but I do get to just go Mihawk at my opponent. See how they respond to this 9. And then I'm just going to Mihawk again to bottom deck the Kaya. And that's just, again, buying me just a little bit more time. My opponent's turn, he drew 2 cards, but if I just give him another card... Okay, he bitches another 2, so he's drawn through 4 cards in his turn total so far. He still has to give me another, which is probably the Rubber Band of Doom here, which is gonna give me the Death Wink, which is excellent for me, I believe. No, Rubber Band of Doom. So he pitches another card. So my opponent went through 5. I give him 1. I guess my opponent went through 4 cards, which is a little bit better. Hit my opponent for 6 here. They probably should defend here, but they don't run a lot of 2Ks, so they'll probably have to like overheat, love beams, wink, I don't know, an event counter of some sort to really get out of this attack. Rubber Band of Doom would probably be the worst possible option for me, but let's see exactly what my opponent opts to do here, or what they have. I swing, they go, they go Gavel. Gavel's going to go ahead and pitch a couple cards, and it goes back to my opponent's turn. They're down to 4 cards in hand, 2 life. Not looking terrible for us, right? We do have 2 9Ks on the board, and it really just comes down to exactly, he goes Pilaf again. This is the 4th Pilaf. My God, can you please stop Pilafing? He goes Daw's Bones. Daw's Bones is going to go ahead and add him back to Gavel. Yeah. And I'm trying to see, oof, man, this is scary stuff. This Usopp's not going to do anything. I'm trying to decide exactly what my next turn is going to be, and my next turn probably just has to be, again, apply as much pressure as I possibly can. I go ahead and I pitch the Usopp, and it goes back to me. And let's see how they respond to this 9. Because there is a universe that if they just take this 9, I can go ahead and like go 11-13, which is pretty solid. But my opponent opts to counter out of this. So they go Gavel, take, which is a mistake. And then I just go 11. And now 11 is going to... And I know there's 2 Kayas at the bottom of the deck, but on top of the Kayas is a Bellamere. So that's the most important card that got bottom deck. That Bellamere is just a complete and total brick off the top. I'm going to hit my opponent for 11 here. He's going to overheat a Daw's Bones. Yeah, I see that. Probably overheat again. Love Beam is another good choice. Overheat another Daw's Bones. That gets you out of it. And then my turn is probably... hit for 6. Probably should have hit a little bit harder than this, if I'm being honest, but I'm going to just summon Sanji Pound. My opponent opts to take it anyway, so that's really good for me. It's excellent, actually. It seems like they got a trigger, so it's another event that I have to be worried about. Yeah. I mean, they probably shouldn't have taken this hit, but they might have just not had any other opportunity to like just not take it, so... The 6 was probably okay, but I could have also just like 9'd him, which is probably the better play, and I get to keep Pound in hand because Pound's just never attacking. So I had to put him to 0 there, and fortunately the 6 worked, but the better play was 9 Sanji. Then it goes back to my opponent. My opponent has few cards in the deck, but not enough that I believe they can just finish me in the following 2 turns within their turn and my attack step, which is something you have to consider as well, right? So my opponent goes and gets Daw's Bones. Daw's Bones is going to get Gavel. He's going to play another Daw's Bones. He's going to get another Gavel from trash. And yeah, I get it. We're trying to mill as many cards as humanly possible, but it can happen. It can get there. My next turn is going to be very simple. 19. Show me 19. He goes ahead and adds a Rubber Band of Doom here, which... depending on what his hand is, could have been the right choice. It's just tough to tell. I just know that he's going to need as much counter power on the following turn as humanly possible. And they do keep up a lot of Dawn here. And yeah, I'm just going to send it. It is what it is. Show me 19. I'm going to see if they can go ahead and combo this correctly. I'm going to attack. Once I attack, I just go ahead and I'm going to go scroll over my opponent's card pool. They have 14 cards. I don't think there's like a way to really cycle 14, thankfully. So my opponent is going to go ahead and they're going to Gavel. Gavel's going to go ahead and get to 9. He's going to pitch 2, go down to 12. He goes Gavel again, Wink. Opts to go Deathwing to go to 15. That's probably not the best time to Wink. You want to have it draw cards. He still had 12 because Wink didn't draw him anything. They go Gavel again, so you probably want to go Gavel then Wink, right? Because that would have then cycled him +1, but at 9 would have been at 8, and then that's just game. So that's pretty good. We were able to win the Nami matchup. The list, you can argue that the list was not the best, but there's no way you can argue me that that wasn't a high roll from my opponent because I gave him 2 peel-offs in life. That's really as good as you're going to get. 1 peel-off in life and Nami's off to the races. They opened Kaya. there really isn't much more that the deck can get. That you got 4 free cards out of life, and you open to Kaya. The deck should really run from there, and my deck doesn't really apply too much pressure. So there were a couple things that my opponent did mistakenly play, like, and I guess they felt confident they could play in that manner because Queen doesn't really apply too much pressure. But once I go 9-drop into 9-drop, then we're in a pretty solid spot. If I can combo that up with like a 3000 Worlds or a Red Rock, then we're in a better spot because we can go ahead and just apply as much pressure as humanly possible while also like delaying my opponent. It's very important that we did 3000 World of Bellamere, because if we ever got to the point where my opponent was like counting the bottom of the deck, which they should be in this matchup, it's fortunate that they're going to go ahead and see like a Bellamere at maybe an awkward time, and that card is only going to be a 1k counter because they should never be able to play it after that. So fortunately for us, we were able to take this W, but this is another really tough matchup that just showcases that Queen can take it in that particular way. So we're back with the deck, and yeah, I can see exactly why Holden did so well with this deck. This deck has a lot of good things going for it, and let me just go ahead and highlight the things that I really liked. Firstly, the high amount of not event counters, but just events in general feel pretty darn good. The fact that we can continuously have some sort of removal, because our mid game in this deck is particularly weak. The mid game consists of us playing these poopy little blockers. I mean, even though Sanji is like a 5k, you don't really want to summon him. He's there for like a potential trigger, but summoning, you know, paying 4 for a 5k is pretty bad value, right? Imagine this was Boa Hancock. It's better in terms of stats from hard playing it, but it's not necessarily exactly what you want either. So your mid game really does suffer when playing this deck, but 3000 Worlds kind of smooths that over, right? You get a, you know, they play a dude and you're like remove, and then you're like, okay, we're at a balanced game state, you know, attack your life, maybe not attack your life depending on how the board state goes, and then you move on from there. Now, Queen doesn't really have great matchups. Shocker alert. The deck isn't like I have like an 80-20 versus the best deck in the format, and it was just a format pick, and that's exactly why I won. It's not the case, and I beg to differ, because I think Queen actually has a bunch of very close matchups and even possibly bad matchups, right? Crocodile versus blue decks, this deck is going to be really, really rough, because decks that can recycle Gum Red Rock are going to do really, really well, because your deck kind of needs to have an 8 costed body or higher on the board, and Red Rock just says bye, miss all Sunday, bye, miss all Sunday, bye. And then the more Red Rocks, the worse it's going to get. And if you don't have your Red Rock for their potential Kaidos or their big drops, you're going to start getting left behind. The yellow matchup, oftentimes they just go mom, 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 mom. And unless you have the right answers, or if you've created or crafted a board state that is equipped to deal with that, it's going to be very difficult depending on that scenario, right? Just how pressuring the red deck is. And oftentimes I found myself struggling versus the Whitebeard matchup, right? Your deck has only a limited amount of 2Ks. If we count them, we got 1, 2, and that's about it, right? In terms of the 2K department. So we're running on 8 total 2Ks, a ton of blockers, and then we could talk about Gum Rain being a potential 2K. But you also have a ton of bricks. So if you're playing versus Whitebeard, they just go 6, 6, 6. Play a chopper, they do that for 2 turns in a row, you're going to be really stuck and out of counter power. And if they can do that towards the mid game where you're your weakest, you're not going to get to your strong late game. So the deck doesn't have fantastic matchups, so I have to really give it to Holden, and anyone that plays this deck and pilots it well could have that success. Now, is this going to be the meta slayer? Is this going to go ahead and tear up tournaments? I don't particularly think so. I think it's a really strong deck. I enjoy playing it a ton. Fortunately, I don't have Katakuri, so I can't play it IRL. But it's a really cool deck, and if you want to try something that's a little bit different, there's a lot of spice, and there's a lot of life that got breathed into the game of One Piece in Set 4. It's not just a red dominated format, but there's a lot of really cool things that you can do. I tried to showcase 3 of what I consider unfavorable-ish matchups. In this video, you had Doflamingo, you had Katakuri, and you have Nami, and hopefully you can see exactly the path of victory in all those matchups. Versus just to quickly recap, versus red decks, what you want to do is, maintain board state and heal. Eventually they'll run out of resources, right? Versus Law and versus Zoro, you don't really want to attack their life. You don't want to give them bonus resource. Very similar to Don Quixote, Doflamingo, the Gurple kind, and obviously the blue kind too. Eventually they'll run out of resources, and then you should be able to take the game once you can get to the board state of blocker, big dude, heal, right? And if I can go big dude, heal, blocker multiple times, they surely cannot be able to keep up with that amount of tempo. If I have their board clear and I can play a blocker and a heal each turn, it's impossible for them to possibly win. So that's the board state that you want to go ahead and achieve. Versus purple, XD. Purple. You know, I XD now, but the next set, God bless us all. Yeah, I hope that really handles exactly what you want to do with the deck. So give it a shot. Try it at locals. Try it in tournaments. Try it in the sim. I don't know where else you can try it. So, I don't know. Give Queen a shot. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did like this video, make sure to hit that like button down below. If you have any comments or anything you want to go ahead and address towards the Queen deck or just in general, hit me in the comments section. And as always, guys, if you're enjoying this type of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more OPTCG content. And I'll see y'all on the next one.